Welcome to the video lecture for Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. We'll go right to paragraph 1. The opening line makes clear with the words, "Our whole town went to her funeral," that the narrator is a neighbor of Emily Gruson's. As the story develops, consider whether you believe the narrator is male or a female. If you do indeed decide on a specific gender, what evidence is there in the story that supports your point of view? Also, do you believe the narrator is white or African American? Again, if you do indeed decide on a specific race or ethnicity, what evidence is there in the story that supports your point of view? Whenever we make claims in literature, we have to go to the text and present evidence that supports our reading or our analysis of the story. It's interesting that the townsmen regarded Emily as a monument, even though fallen, but the women did not regard Emily in this light. What type of monument was Emily to the men? Is it a physical monument, as in some standard of beauty, some ideal of what a woman should be? Is Emily a social monument of some sort, based upon class? The women, we are told, just wanted to get a look inside the house. So might that suggest that she was indeed a monument of some sort to the women, even though it's mentioned only that she was a monument to the men? At paragraph 2, the house had once been white, which implies what? It is now run down, so it is a dingier shade of white, I suppose. Also, it is left over from the Old South, the house, of plantations and slavery. Does the narrator mean to imply that the loss of this way of life is somehow less white, and that it's a symbol of old structures left behind? We are also told that cotton gins had, and this is a quote, encroached and obliterated the august names of that neighborhood, end quote. To analyze further, one would think that cotton gins would be regarded as good because they are a labor-saving device, but they also replaced slaves doing manual labor. So is that why word choices like encroached and obliterated that sound negative are attached to cotton gins becoming the normal way to do some farming? Is this another example that the narrator is forlorn about the passing away of the Old South? What are we to do also with the house being described as stubborn and coquettish in its decay? Coquettish may be a desirable quality in some way because it could be regarded as cute or endearing, but it's juxtaposed with the term decay. Immediately afterwards, it's described as an eyesore among eyesores. So, is the Old South now being criticized? There's a lot going on in these first couple of paragraphs. You could read them over again and again and sit and think about it, and there's some very rich analyses that can come out of this. Paragraph 3, it goes some distance in helping us decide some things about the narrator, or at least it helps us to pose questions that might lead us to answers. Why is it necessary to relate to us the fact that Colonel Sartoris, the mayor, made all the African American women wear aprons on the street? It surely tells us something about the mayor, but what does the fact that this information is given to us at all, what does that tell us about the narrator? Narrator thought this was important to include. How is the parceling out of that information handled by the narrator? Does this make us think that the narrator is black, white, what? If only a woman could believe that Emily's father loaned money to the town, and that's what it says in paragraph 3, does this make us think that the narrator is male or female? A lot of questions that can be posed, and actually we don't have to answer all of them. It's good to keep posing questions. Sometimes you will come to answers that lead to a rich analysis, sometimes not. Paragraph 4. The beginning of this paragraph suggests that the South is changing, but slow to change. They are still looking to handwrite letters to her, send a car to pick her up, and they really do not take action. Also, how does Emily's reaction to this situation inform us about who she is and how she sees herself. She pretends that she does not understand the gravity of the situation, and so she returns that tax bill. So if she returns the tax bill, obviously she does understand. Paragraph 5. What does the description of the parlor suggest? Remember that because we're now inside the house, we're closer to Emily. So, do the various descriptions of the interior of the house reflect aspects of Emily's character? For example, the blinds are raised, which suggests that when the blinds were down, there had been blindness to the outside world. What else could the occupants of the house be blind to? Changing times, perhaps? Um, the portrait of Emily's father is done in crayon, so there is some element of simplicity attached to what was once a very upscale lifestyle. In paragraph 6, we have the physical description of Emily. Is this the fate of someone that lives only for herself? Paragraph 7. Emily does not ask her visitors to sit. So, is this the hospitality of the Old South? Paragraph 10, and here from paragraph 10 through about paragraph 12, Emily is being very stubborn. What does Emily's stubbornness suggest? Paragraph 15. Was there a prior mention of the smell, or is this the first reference to it? Is there foreshadowing at work here? Here's a quote. The one we believed would marry her. That's from paragraph 15. It's a jarring point in the narrative because it makes us more conscious of the narrator and reminds us that the narrator is indeed a member of the community. Um, Paragraph 16. Word choices like gross and teeming are not descriptions of something nice. Does Faulkner point to ways in which the upper class is really of a low order? Paragraph 21. There are three graybeards and one member of the rising generation. But as we've already seen, the rising generation is no better at handling Emily than their predecessors. Paragraph 23. If this bad smell is a metaphor, then a metaphor for what? Paragraph 24. Emily in the window is backlit, like an idol or iconic figure, yet she's motionless. What does this suggest? Paragraph 25. For the townspeople, there's a certain vindication in Emily's failure to find a husband. Why? Paragraph 26. And here's a quote. At last they could pity Miss Emily. Do the townspeople need to pity Emily so that they can flip the social order? Also, why doesn't the narrator include himself, herself, in this pity? It says they, not we. So, it's just they could pity Miss Emily. Paragraph 27. Is there foreshadowing in the fact that Emily will not let the body of her father be taken away? Is it that she thinks so highly of herself that she will not even acknowledge death? Paragraph 29. It's an interesting concept that there is serenity in tragedy. Is it part of the human condition that when life becomes truly painful, at a certain point, pain can no longer hurt us? Is the serenity, then, somehow born of excessive pain? Why do the townspeople say, poor Emily? That occurs in paragraph 31. In paragraph 33, what an interesting word choice to suggest that Emily is fallen. What does this mean? Could it have multiple meanings? In paragraph 34, there's another physical description of Emily. But what would we imagine a lighthouse keeper's face to look like? Also, the way the text reads, you imagine. Why does the narrative shift to second person like that? Sometimes we pose questions we really don't have answers to, but they're interesting to pose nonetheless. And sometimes they lead to interesting literary analyses. Okay, paragraph 41. Why does the description of her face a strained flag? Um, Maybe it's meant to suggest something about the stripes, or maybe it's that the flag stands for liberty and justice for all. But Emily, her family, and her social class are supposedly above all that. It could be that the flag is the flag of the Old South, now strained and fading into history along with societal constructs of the Old South. At paragraph 43, The first line states, "We all said," which suggests that the rumor mill spins very fast. Somehow, everyone knows that Emily bought the poison. We're also told Homer Barron likes men. Is there subtext here that suggests Homer is gay or bisexual, or does he just prefer the single life and the company of men? In paragraph 45, in what way or ways are those two female cousins more Grierson than Emily had ever been? What does this mean? What does it mean to be Grierson at all? Does it have something to do with the way religious people are expected to act? We are told in paragraph 44, for example, that Emily is Episcopal. Paragraph 46. The word cabal means a small group of schemers or plotters against someone in authority. So why now are the townspeople back on Emily's side and against the female cousins? After all, the female cousins, we were told earlier, are more Grierson than Emily. Are the townspeople now on Emily's side because the female cousins overstayed their welcome in Emily's home and the South has a certain respect for social order? Could it really be that simple? Notice that the last anyone ever sees of Homer Barron is when he enters the house, so he's never seen leaving it. Foreshadowing? At 49, the daughters and granddaughters were sent to Emily for lessons in china painting with the same spirit as going to church with coins for the collection plate. Really? Depositing money in a collection plate can be seen as being a good Christian, but it can also be seen as something one might do to feel superior to those who are less fortunate. Is taking lessons from Emily a good Christian act, in that people could be trying to help her during her rough financial times? Or is it a way of feeling superior? Emily refuses numbers on her house, and she refuses a mailbox. Why? At the end of paragraph, that was at paragraph 50, that Emily refuses numbers on her house and a mailbox. At 51, at the end of the paragraph, we have many descriptive words that are used to describe Emily. How does dear fit into that? And finally, at 57, the valence curtains, which are bed curtains, are a faded rose color. In literature, the rose is usually the symbol of love. All I can say is, by the end of this story, love certainly takes a very, very strange form, and I think you would probably agree. Thank you.